Welcome to The Brain Dump, where we study the psychology of success. Join us as we probe the habits, rituals, and routines of top-performing artists, entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and more to uncover the timeless principles we can all use to take our lives to the next level. Are you ready to plunge the grunge that's been gunking up your mind's eye? Great, then let's get to it.
Guys, welcome to the Brain Dump. Happy to have you back here again. Your podcast on stoicism, philosophy, psychology of success. Anthony, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Good.
So this is fun for us because Angelo, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Got introduced to one of the most thoughtful, savage men I've ever met, Rick Alexander is ex-Navy, a coach, ultra-marathon runner, a really high-caliber human being who I love his podcast. His podcast has got me through a lot of rough times when I was searching. But he introduced us. And so if you'd like to take a couple minutes and kind of introduce yourself to the audience, Angelo, and kind of what you spend your days doing, and we'll get going from there.
Sure. Wow. Great. Yeah. And shout out to Rick Alexander. I really feel that even if you don't always care for his viewpoints, you respect him. And that
Agreed.
To me is what everyone should be looking for as a creator, is to be respected. That's the foundation. Anyways, a little bit about me. So I am the founder, CEO, and creator of Alpha Hippie, which is a movement that began out of my own self-actualization journey and has grown into a podcast. And then along with that, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've never had a real job too long. I never really was one of those. I didn't have a resume. I'm 37. I'm one of those guys. Anyways, what I've really fancied myself with as a coach and guide, which I was for a lot of my years. I started in the CrossFit fitness space. I still own O'Hare CrossFit, which is in Chicago. And then I transitioned now into Alpha Hippie solely during these last final years of being the sole face of the gym. And now I step fully into Alpha Hippie, and I'm a silent partner in the gym. And so along with this teaching and guide space, along with my passion for growth, I really started thinking about, where do I want to continue guiding and teaching, and where I feel the most suited for my skill set, and also what's the biggest problem that I want to solve. And so Alpha Hippie is really a symbolism of my own self-development. There's a podcast that goes along with it. And where I am guiding right now is to helping men stop playing small, because there is nothing that frustrates me more than when I see a man play small in his life and not accept his true power and the destiny that is usually on his doorstep every day.
No, that's all right.
No, let it go, dude. Hey,
you're in a safe place here.
This is my deep passion. Every fucking day of his life, it gets delivered like the newspaper. Remember that Nintendo game Paperboy?
Yeah.
It's thrown at your doorstep every day. Sometimes it's in your mailbox, or sometimes you miss, but that paper's delivered every day. And either you wake up and you play big and you take that paper, or you don't go look for it and you just go play small, and you have a fine, pretty good, can't complain life. And that just drives me crazy.
And I love that. And it's interesting, right? You got me fired up already. But just so we're clear, I think I hold the record for cuss words on my own podcast, so you'll be okay. But alpha and hippie.
Yes.
That's an interesting name for a company, because the dichotomy between the two things sometimes don't go hand in hand.
Yes, I'll break it down for you, my beautiful brother. So here's the deal. Hippies resemble feminine energy to me. They're about feelings. They're about thoughts. They're about words, which are all very important. Your heart, your soul, your intuition. That's all good and great. But let's be real about those energies. They don't move anything. They don't take action. They sit around and wait for a handout. Well, I'm a 37-year-old man with business partners and a family that has to eat. And if I don't play hunter sometimes, we starve. And that's where the alpha comes in. And if you look at God, divinity, it's the perfect harmonization of masculine and feminine energy. Sometimes you need to be nurtured, and that's what equals loved. And sometimes you need to be natured, and that's a slap across the face, yet that's still love. And that's divinity, right? Because God is all powerful and mighty. And one day he told Noah to build an ark because he was going to flood this thing. And then some other days he rubs your head real nice and lets you know how beautiful you are, because that's what some of us need on some days. But arguing and denying one is not really serving the greater good. It's the harmonizing of both frequencies that take us to the gods. And that's what I'm after, brother. It's helping men not be too masculine. I'm not about men just sitting on their ass talking about their feelings. You don't see me with a ponytail, Jack. I'm about us being stable, open, confident men that deliver, that you could trust time and time again, like a lighthouse. And that's what Alpha Hippie really resembles.
I love this idea of, you went out and you said, what's the biggest problem I can solve? And you actively started looking. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've been talking about a lot lately, this idea that we do the world no favors by playing small, and that inside of each one of us, there's this greatness, and we're all aware deep down what that greatness could be. We don't necessarily know how it's going to manifest itself, but we all know we're born and put onto this planet to be more than just average, to be more than just mundane, and that we all feel special. But at some point we become complacent, we become comfortable, we become beaten down, and for whatever reason we stop listening to that voice inside that says you could be great. We stop pursuing it, and what follows is a life of discontentment, or maybe it's just contentment, but it's not a life of impact or achievement. And I think a life without impact ultimately ends up being a very shallow thing, whether that's, impacting a lot of people or just impacting your community, the family, the people around you, your friends. Like, it can manifest itself on different scales, right? So how did you come to that place of saying, this is the problem I'm going to solve? Like, because there's so many problems that you could be solving. Why this one?
It's the thing that pissed me off the most in this world.
Yeah.
It's all selfish. I want to solve a problem so I could smile more and enjoy the world around me more, instead of just sitting around blaming other people for the problem. It's all selfish. Let's not get it twisted. Mm-hmm. But it's selfish with accommodation, which I really believe is the difference between a boy and a man. Boys are selfish. Men are selfish with accommodation. And so first, to accommodate, you must consider. You consider relationships. You consider what may be bothering you, and how you could accommodate it is actually what the king archetype is built upon, is how can you serve it better? And without saying no to yourself. He's a really good example, Anthony and Austin. A boy is a Porsche 911. I'm 5'9", 210. How many people of me are getting in that thing? That little trunk, right? It's a selfish vehicle. A man is a Raptor. A big, enough room for the family, enough room to throw stuff in back, but still enough balls under the hood. If we got to get a little crazy, we got that too. Right? That's what all my work is really fancied on. And I will actually even go farther, Anthony, to disagree with you on a point. is many men just don't realize where their hero really lies and their superpower because they've been sitting in the underworld too long, or no one's really helped them see it. Yet, every man, I would imagine, if you don't look at yourself as the hero, you look at someone else as the hero. It's like a daddy complex. That's what I really call it. And until you find yourself being the hero, you will always feel like you're a zero. And so here's a really good example. Most of the time you find your hero in the uncomfort, the discomfort, the underworld. And I'll even illustrate this even more because I've given this plenty of thought, gentlemen. Anybody on here, Austin, Anthony, have you guys seen the movie Forrest Gump?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, sure.
Great. So then this will be great analogy for you. Forrest Gump sits at a bench in the entire movie and walks through his entire life. And there's a very pivotal part in the movie that is actually what I see as the most important part. Yet many people may look over because of the accolade of it. Yet it is the reason he gets all the accolades. Forrest Gump was bullied as a young boy for being stupid and, more importantly, wearing braces on his legs. The kids picked on him and belittled him, right? And then one day, the female affirmative in the movie, the woman support, Jenny, or like if you see Rocky, Adrian, the one that cured, opened up, and affirmed him, the feminine energy, said what to him that one day with the bullies? What does she tell Forrest to do when they're throwing the rocks?
Run, Forrest, run.
Great. And so what does Forrest start doing? He starts running, right? And as he's telling this woman next to him the story, he's not blaming the bullies anymore. You don't even hear him talk about the bullies, because I bet you bet your ass if he did, he'd be thankful for him. And then he starts running, and there's a moment where his body's actually running, yet his consciousness doesn't collect it yet. You guys get that part? When the braces are broken, but he doesn't know they're broken yet. And then he looks down, and he sees as a little boy that he's running, and those bastards can't catch him anymore. He felt freedom. He felt the gods. And then he has a little snicker on his face as a little boy. And then he cuts to the man in the movie. And this is the only time Forrest really boasts in the movie, by the way. And he goes, "You may not believe it if I told you, but I could run like the wind blows." And he gets a little perky up in the whole thing, right? And later on, we find out this guy does a million other things that people would probably think is cooler, right? All-American football player, all these other things, Apple, Bubba Gump, war hero, you name it. I get to visit the president again. He didn't even give a shit by that point, right? But then that moment though, he boasts. And then he says something really important. From that day on, from that moment, if I was doing anything, what's he say?
I was running.
Beautiful. And then the rest of the movie is him reliving and anchoring that hero story, because now he knew he was the hero, and he knew what his superpower was. And no matter what he faced in his life, if you really look at it, what did he do? He went to Alabama, and he was
a runner.
Great. He went to the war, and how did he become a war hero?
He ran.
Beautiful. He was going to go. Be a shrimp boat captain. What did he do during the storm? Did he run away or did he run into it? Kept running, right? Then he finds out even towards the end that the place that he wanted to go to wasn't too far. What did he do? How did he get to Jenny's house?
He ran.
Very good. Most of us are caught up in a story about where we were bullied still, instead of looking at it how that was the thing that we got through and prevailed. So most of us just tell the story wrong and then don't know our superpower.
And what you don't know about me is in my early 20s, I had a meth addiction and I was homeless, and I broke that. And then I was an alcoholic for 20 years. I've been sober for 2 years.
Beautiful. Congratulations, my friend.
And I've lost 70 pounds. So yes, thank you so much. But it wasn't until I reframed that story was the reason that I stand here today on this phone call, able to articulate and coach my coaching clients through what they're going through. It wasn't until I realized that I was writing my own story and it wasn't happening against me, and I stopped playing the victim and I took ownership of my mistakes, that the narrative switched and the power lifted me up instead of pushed me down.
Wasn't happening to you, it was happening for you, eh?
Exactly.
Very good.
Anthony?
And that's the dance.
Yeah, and this all reminds me, the obstacle becomes the way, if we're keeping with the Stoic philosophy, right? When we see the issue, the challenge, the fear, that's where the growth happens. That's where the opportunity lies. And that's the direction you don't necessarily want to go that way, but it's the way that you have to go if you want to make forward progress. And it's this idea that without adversity, there can be no true achievement. We don't look at the hero's story because they won all the battles and made it through unscathed. We look at the hero's story and we say, man, I see myself in that person. They came through so much adversity, so much challenge. Like they got their teeth kicked in and they didn't let it stop them. And then they succeeded. And that's what resonates with people, isn't just success. And this is something that Austin and I have been talking about a lot recently, because it was brought to my attention at an event that I went to a couple weeks ago that was all about, I would say, touching base with our leadership abilities and how to make impact. And one of the phrases that people used as I was talking was, you're selectively vulnerable. And selective vulnerability isn't real vulnerability. And so this has been something that I've been thinking about a little bit, is how do we take that narrative, that weakness, or that thing that we might perceive as weakness, that we maybe for a lot of guys want to put into the closet and ignore? How do we bring that out into the light in a way where we can say, that's actually my strength. That's actually something that I'm not ashamed of, but I'm actually proud of. Like, how do I put that flag in the ground? What do I do in that position, Angelo?
You visit IamAlphaHippie.com and you send me that check.
Dude, talk about a closer. Yeah.
There you go, baby.
That was the setup.
Hey, my question to you is he even more Chicago in this exact moment right now than he's ever been the whole call? He just closed it. Right?
You cut me that check. I'll get you there real quick. No bullshit though, guys. That is the basis of what identity alchemism all really is. Mm-hmm. Is helping. First, what we do is we get to the story and recreate it so that you see it as glory. We identify your superpower. And then we look at your life, where you want to go now. What outcome do you want to create now as a man? Now, knowing that you're a man, you're the hero with a superpower. At this point in your life, what kind of life do you want to create? What's the ideal outcome? And then what we have to understand is the outcomes that we are after, what we want to do, only comes down to who we are and what we believe we are. Because you only do what you believe. Rick Alexander, our good friend Austin, taught me that. You only do what you believe. And so once you've come to us, we anchor in we must find the anchor story, right? Because in the story, you're the hero and we know your superpower. Check. Then let's talk about now as a man that you've rid yourself of the boyish desires. Now you're a man of duty and responsibility. Great. Well, what does that outcome look like for you? How do you want your lifestyle to be? How do you want your income or purpose to be? And how do you want your contributions to be? Because let's not get it twisted. The 21st century man wants them all right now. The 20th century man believed first was the income. Then when you retired, you finally got the lifestyle. And then if there was any money left over, the people and casualties you trampled, you contributed back to society. That's what's called philanthropy.
Dude, I'm sorry. You just brought it to life for me, because that is exactly what they do.
Look at Carnegie. That's what philanthropy actually became, because he felt so guilty for all the stuff he did with the steel workers and how he took advantage of them. And then he became the greatest philanthropist of his time. No, you didn't, Jack. You had a guilty conscience. I'm with you, bro. Okay. And so back to identity alchemism. So then I have this man that comes to me. First, we anchor in this story through story work and things of that, right? We anchor in the superpower so that you own it and you understand what your move is, right? Like every superhero has a move, right? Spider-Man had the web. Batman had the gadgets, on and on and on, right? And then we work through identity alchemism to become the identity that you wish to now have in your life, because once you are having the identity and you believe the person, you will do the things naturally. Much like a person, have you ever seen anyone lose weight but then gain a bunch back? That's because they identified with still being a fat person after they lost the weight. They believe that they were a fat person. The guy that wins a $50 million in the lottery, but then goes broke in a year, is the person that believes that they are still poor. Their identity didn't shift with the outcome or with the external. And so what we do is we focus on creating the outcome, the identity internally, because then we know the external is going to resemble that. And that's what, Austin, back to what you said, that's what identity alchemism really is. And that's the whole idea of our program. And we do that from physical embodiment, mental embodiment, spiritual embodiment, emotional embodiment. That has to be your thoughts, words, actions, and then your habits, and then you go and create the life that you really want based off the outcome. But what most people are focused on is doing and thinking versus being, because that's the real doing.
So to ask you a question, the number one thing, because I help people that either have been through rehab or get sober. I do that all the time. In my free time, we have a mastermind group for recovery people. What I've found in my work with alcoholics and my own work and just drug addiction, they're not scared of stopping drinking. They're scared because the only identity that they know is I'm a drunk. And they're actually scared because once they remove I'm a drunk, they have no idea who the fuck they are. And that's actually more scary than the stopping drinking.
Yeah.
Great. That goes back to what Anthony was saying earlier about stepping into this. It's actually something called the Jonah complex, gentlemen. Maslow actually developed this. It's based off the story of Jonah in the Bible. Most men would actually like to live as worms than step into their godliness because of the fear of not being liked. Really, it's Jonah's the story of denying God's will. And what that looked like for him. One of the greatest things that we could all do, Austin, even for something, a quick tip that you could do with your men in recovery is stop saying that you're a recovering alcoholic and say, I used to be an alcoholic. Put it behind you right away. If you're still recovering, you're still in it. I am drowning. I was drowning. Drowning's behind me. If I'm still drowning, the water's over me. You get it? And just using little things. That's the real trick of what I do is I tell everyone the devil hides in plain sight. It's these little parts that we hold on to. It's these little words that keep us in a place that we don't want to be in. So I used to be an alcoholic. Here's my other ones. I call them daddy words or pressure words. I have to. I must. I need to. I got to. Or if you're where I'm from, I gotta. What about if they were get tos and choose tos? Who has the power then? Who owns it? I don't have to go to the store. I choose to go to the store. I don't have to go. I don't need to go watch my kids. I get to go watch my kids. One's gratitudes and one get is a gratitude, which is a feminine energy, right? If you want someone to feel warm about what they're doing, shift it to a get to. If you want someone to feel like they're commanding, they're in their masculine power, they're in their balls a little bit more affirmative, say, I choose to. And then tell me how you feel about what you're doing. I choose to be on this podcast. First, I get to, which I'm very grateful, but let's not get it twisted. I choose to be here. I don't need to be here. I don't have to be here, right? I choose.
It's powerful when you claim the ownership instead of just saying the life in this world is happening to me, but it's saying I am an active agent in this world and I act and force on the external environment around me. It's not just I'm passive. And this reminds me, like the words that we use, they're so important. And Austin and I, we talk about this so much. And it's this idea that the thing that's holding you back, you need to take it, you need to put it behind you. So now that it's pushing you forward. Right. And stop letting that be the point of weakness and start using it as the point of strength. And so I'm a big fan of, if you want to stop smoking, if you want to get into shape, you don't just say, I used to be fat or whatever. You say, I am healthy. I am not a smoker. Like, you redefine what that identity is moving forward, because identity is one of the strongest forces in human nature. Like our desire to remain consistent with the identity that we've established for ourselves, it's all encompassing. And so, Austin, your point about it's so terrifying for people who've been, identified as drunks or, drug addicts to suddenly let that go, because then it's like you're just adrift and you don't know what to replace it with. But the really cool thing, guys, this is the part that I get so excited about, is that you can choose whatever identity you want. You can replace it with whatever you want. And that's terrifying for a lot of people, because they've been fed the dreams of others, the American dream: go to college, get a job, go retire on the beach when you're 65. Like we buy into these dreams that other people give us. And we've never had to stop and really think, like, what is it that I want? And so in Angelo, you're talking about one of the very first things you guys do when you sit down is, what's your outcome? What's your ideal end state? Let's establish that first and then work backwards and figure out what we have to start doing. But boy, man, if you have to do that alone, it's super, super terrifying. So I think that's where guys like you, Austin and Angelo, are just super valuable, because you help people make that transition from the identity that they're so afraid to let go of. And you give them the confidence to believe that they can take that next step until the confidence becomes their own.
Well, and one of the things that I noticed after I lost a bunch of money in a business is one of my superpowers is seeing somebody in the best version of themselves and putting them in a position to win. So when you don't know who you are and when you don't know where you're going, you have to borrow my belief in you until you have enough in your own. And I'm pulling you along as who I see you as. And eventually you meet me and walk tandem with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mentor in the hero story, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's the guide. It's the most essential part of actually doing it, getting to your true potential. And for men, because of the culture and also the willingness to ask for help and embracing male help and not looking at it as the enemy, that's where many men just get left aside, because we're afraid to look weak or, anything like that. But, there's a reason why when you first skydive, you don't do it alone. Right? When you climb up Mount Everest, they got a Sherpa who could do it smoking a cigarette. Right? I mean, there's just Rocky had Mickey, Luke had Obi-Wan. I mean, the story is told over and the recipe is out there. Just get the ingredients, will you? Like, stop trying to change the recipe. It's Joseph Campbell. Oh man, he gave it to us. Right? He, in the modern world, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you guys really want to get real, the Bible gave it to us.
Dude, Angelo, Tony Robbins, all these guys, these gurus are literally reciting the fucking Bible in a different context. Correct? Am I wrong or not?
Dude, I got it right here. I have a Bible called The Message. It's the contemporary version of the Bible because thous and that's and shalls are a little over my high school educated brain. But goddamn it, guys, it's the same thing. Just read the Bible. It's all over repeated. It is, right? Just like most self-help books are based off of Napoleon Hill.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah. It's all it is, right?
All you need to do is read that one book. You don't need to read anything else.
That's it. See you later. And it's all just different experiences, different ways. And the most important thing that I tell people when they want to work or possibly work with me is this: is if you're a true guide and a healer that is doing it for the right reasons, you are looking to liberate and not fix anyone. That's first. And yet after that, what we are all doing is we are conductors trying to get people to the same place. So if you are looking for help, imagine that you walk into a train station. All the trains are going somewhere, and that's to the gods. All you are looking for is the conductor that you feel has walked your path similarly, and then that's the one that you choose. So if you're like me, you've grown up more concrete street, right? You sit on the stoop and you talk some shit with your friends. You might have stole some things. You were definitely a womanizer in a past life. You've done all of these things, right? You stole some stuff. Maybe you ran some illegal poker games because your dad was in jail for 11 years of your life, and that's what you thought you wanted to be. Well, then I'm your guy. Right? And it's just that's it. And if I'm not, only thing I pray for you is that you find your guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not
Austin
mad. Dude, yeah.
Austin was just talking about this a couple hours ago on a previous episode where, for him, because he comes from this coaching background, I think it was your coach that said, you have nothing to be worried about. You don't have to be stressed or concerned because all you're doing is you're finding the people who resonate with your story, who have the same path, and you're just sharing the things that you've already been through.
He basically said you're only coaching what you've been through. As a coach, you don't need to be stressful because your people will find you. But so it's like at the end of the day, they say, oh, I'm sure this will resonate with you. They say, oh, like, dude, you're so amazing as a coach. And I'm like, hold on. All I'm doing is this. There's a big ass fucking mountain of bullshit and fake stories. I take the mountain, I slide it to the side. I say, hey, you're fucking great. I take away some seaweed and some fucking cobwebs and I go, here you go. Here's your mojo back. And then they go, holy shit, I'm a brand new person. Does that resonate with you?
Austin, it's such a perfect analogy. So I had a very transformative psychedelic experience.
Yes.
And I had a wizard. I call him my wizard guy. That's how good.
You're a psychedelic wizard. I love it.
I had a wizard. He told me, he said, Angelo, here's your problem. You're driving around and your windshield's so dirty.
Oh.
You think that you're a Toyota. And after this is done, you're going to see that your windshield was just dirty, that you're really a Ferrari, my friend. You're going to see that emblem on the front. And then I'm going to get out of the way. And I said, well, I'll drink whatever you want me to drink then. Pass that shit.
No, but hear me out.
I mean, that was it.
I want to ask you, because you do this for a living and so do I.
Yeah.
And we don't do it for the money. It doesn't hurt. I won't lie. But hear me out. Is there any better feeling when I equate it to a lion that's been in a cage without any meat for a couple years, and when you open the door and they're ready to run, they run like they've never ran before, and it just that energy that I have a great friend. By the way, you and him would get along. Like, I might as well disappear with y'all for like 3 days, because he walks around with no shirt on, does DMT out in the woods in Hawaii, like that whole
Some
thing.
shit's going to happen on that trip. Yeah. I'm just going to call that right now.
He said, Austin, I want you to tell you something, how you will truly reach the next level. When you can become a supersonic, raw, natured fucking beast and still stare at a sunset, and you can massage both sides of that coin, you become an unstoppable human force.
You become an alpha hippie, baby. That's the game, dude. I'm out here hunting like a savage animal. When I get home, guys, I put on an apron with my 1.5-year-old son and I cook supper, bro, for my family. 4 days a week, I cook dinner. I go to the farmer's market every Sunday. I do all the things. I live 3/4 of a mile from the ocean. I see the sunset off my porch every day. I listen to opera music while I'm cooking dinner. Okay? Let's not get it twisted, Jack. I know how to access my feminine. I love it. I dance. I go to raves, and I'm the one that's dancing and screaming. You could put glitter across my face, okay? And I know how to take care of business, too. Mm-hmm. And that a lot. Lion and lamb. You need to trust your lion so that you could go be a lamb. Right? That darkness, that animal, as long as it doesn't have a leash on you anymore and you hold the leash, that's the real game, because the darkness is what brings you to light. If you can't get to that bottom, see the depth, the best part about the deep end that no one says is when you're at the bottom, all there is light. When you're playing on the shallow end, you don't see that bottom, and that's what really scares you.
I'm curious, Angelo, you kind of alluded a little bit to your past and the hallucinogenic experience that you had with your wizard. What were you doing before you were doing this? Before the moment where you started pursuing this aspect of your life? Were you always aware of this masculine, feminine energy and the interplay of those two, or was there something transformative? I'm assuming there was a guide at some point, whether that was a person or a book or something in your life that kind of like flipped a switch, or was it always on?
Great question. So I like a little more clarification, so I'm going to ask you a question. Do you want to know my anchor hero story, or do you want to know how I actually healed myself so that I could actually believe it was my hero story?
I think we need both. I think we need to understand what the anchor is before we can understand how you went about accepting it.
Beautiful. Great. So most of my life, I felt it was very unfortunate for my anchor story. I felt bad, felt sorry for myself, because your anchor story oftentimes is through trauma or taking away your innocence. My innocence got taken away at a very young age. Really did, guys. My father was in prison from when I was 5 till I was 16. And my father grew up. See, this is part of my healing. I didn't learn this till many years later, after the incident. My father grew up very overweight. and he was, fat. And he came home. He had a father that worked 2 jobs and ignored him. Basically, he didn't have a father. He had a mother that blamed him and beat the shit out of him for everything. He was 14. She forged a work permit for him and made him go to work and kept his money. So my dad lived this life of being bullied at home with no refuge or anything like that. And then one day, Guy Sisco grew up in high school and became a bigger man. He's 6'1", and he was over 300 pounds. He was a big, powerful man. And someone bullied him one day, and he beat them up physically. And that was my dad's anchor story. He beat up the bully. And my dad didn't realize it at the time. My dad believed that his superpower was violence and not just tenacity, right? Not just courage to stand up to the bully. So my dad became a lifelong criminal. That's why he went to jail. You don't go to federal prison for 11 years because you're just a swell guy, right? I mean, geez, this is what, and yet my father found so much freedom in it because beating people up and being really aggressive is how he got his bullies to stop bothering him. And it took me a long time to learn that, gentlemen. That's why I want to preface at this so you guys don't think my father's a villain. Well, in 1989, I was 4 years old or 5 years old, something like that. And there's a place called Lake Geneva, which is just outside of Chicago. And it's like the Hamptons, right? And there's that's where the guys that are rolling, especially on Fontana, you have a boat, a house, the deal. But my dad at the time was so cool that if it was raining, he would just get us a room in one of the fancy hotels called the Abbey, and we would get to swim all day. We never got to not have fun. And so one day I go there with just my father and I don't really remember all of this story. It's bits and pieces for me. Okay. But my father recounts it quite vividly because he is very proud. He calls it my epiphany story. So I'm 5 years old. I'm playing in this pool, maybe 4 or 5. I really don't remember the age, but it was before he went to prison. And 3 kids were picking on me. And I didn't do anything. I just turned around and ignored them. Well, my father saw this, and it absolutely put him into a tailspin of rage. And when those little boys went to the locker room to go change or go to the bathroom, my father pulled me out of the pool, and he dragged me to the locker room. And he told me to go up to the bullies and punch one of them. And I punched one of them. And the same guy hit me back. And I looked at my dad. And he turned back at me and he goes, "Don't stop." And I fought all 3 bullies and I won. And that day, I learned my superpower, which is I don't stop. My game is last man standing. And so anything I do, I know that my tenacity is going to beat anyone on this planet because I've been sharpening it and getting it better and better over this time. When I was a little boy, I was so sad that happened to me. I resented that my entire life. Yet the truth of the matter is, you got me around other men. It was my dirty little secret that I knew that I had over anyone in that room, is that I felt that my guts didn't matter. I wasn't going to give up. I imagined that anyone would stop. And it was I played it over and over again in my brain subconsciously every time I wanted to achieve something. I just said, I'm going to keep doing this and someone else is going to fold eventually because it's not going to be me. And I played it time and time again in my life, and I didn't realize it because I resented the story so much. And then once I was able to, and then also too, I had a story wrapped up in my head that my mother didn't protect me from this life because I was a little boy. And so I had this complete story wrapped up that I was the victim, that my father put me in a situation that removed my innocence, and I didn't have a mother around that had enough self-esteem to protect me, which took me a lot of forgiving on both ends. And that's what really led me, and what I really learned in that journey is I learned how to forgive my mother that day. Is I learned that my mother didn't have or couldn't have had the self-esteem to actually protect me, because she wouldn't have told my father no, because she didn't believe in that life or whatever the case is. And then as I have been growing into this husband and now father role, I text my father almost every day and thank him for this story. Because, guys, I moved out to California because I was inspired to. And the only reason I really believe that I could do that and succeed is because I know I won't stop. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best I got at these 37 years of my life.
It's a powerful story, man. Thank you for sharing that.
I don't.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being open enough to share that. And to be honest with you, me and Anthony kind of like feel when we don't want to add. I don't want to add anything because I don't want to sully the story. And so I feel smarter. I feel more excited. I want to get out to San Clemente right now and hang out with you, because I would just, but if people want to find out more about what you do and how you do it, how would they go about doing that?
Wonderful. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to have such a beautiful, safe space to share the story as it's come to glory. Because like I said, I resented it and resented the characters in the story for many, many years. And along with those unhealed wounds came a lot of trauma that I passed on to other people, right? Because when you have when a man has any unhealed wounds with the feminine, that's usually how they treat their women, right? And then when they have a unhealed wound with the masculine, they get stuck into another story that maybe all men are enemies, or they must be rageful towards other men, or all the things that I did wrong. Let's not get it twisted. So it took many years of healing and work to do that. And that's why I actually feel qualified enough to actually work with men and do the work that I do, because my innocence was taken a lot earlier than most men. And that wound up being my greatest strength right now, because I wasn't playing kids' games when I was a boy. I was out working and making money and taking care of my mother. I had duty while I was still wet in the bed, gentlemen. Serious.
No, I love it.
You got it? So yeah. Beautiful. So first, we alluded to your mentor having the flavor of you and a similar path. And I encourage all men to start here. I am Alpha Hippie. You could look up, or Alpha Hippie Podcast is my podcast. I do long form shows such as this, and I also do guiding shows based on specific concepts or things like that are there every week. So you could check out those shows. I have a free Facebook group called The Way of the Courageous Man. This is something a little bit deeper. If you want to actually, we do live shows in there, and actually you get a chance to interact with me and the Alpha Hippie Squad a little bit more, where we connect and talk. That's where I spend most of my time on social media these days, is interacting with the men of the group. And then third, a little bit deeper, is my program and course. That's IamAlphaHippie.com, where you could schedule calls with us. And the call is to really help you see where you're at in your journey and see if we're actually the conductor for you. Because I'm only interested in working with people that really see me as their Sherpa, and I could do that with them.
I love it. Yeah, man. So Angelo, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. I feel like we have to get you back on the show to go even deeper because this hasn't been nearly enough time. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing your story and making this I think what you do is a beautiful thing because you open the door and give permission for others to follow. Like you just crack it open. You say, hey, come join me in here. It's okay. It's a safe place. And that's powerful because so many of us feel that we're alone and that it's weird and we'll be chastised or judged by those around us if we try to pursue or change our identity or, change our life. And so what you're doing, I think is a great thing. For you guys at home that are taking the time to listen to us throughout this conversation, I want to say that we appreciate you as well. Make sure that you go check out Angelo's podcast because I think there's just a ton of beautiful wisdom in there for you to pick up. And we're going to look forward to seeing you guys next week.
No, and what we're going to do, because we're interviewing Rick on Thursday, we're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back with Rick, and we're going to do a long one, like a ridiculous, like a Joe Rogan
3 hours.
Joe Rogan 3 hours. All right, guys. If you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at the Brain Dump. Now, before you go, it's important to solidify what you've learned here today by taking action. If all you do is listen, then you're only going to retain a small amount of the information you consumed here today. So take a quick moment to really lock in any key insights, tidbits, or pieces of wisdom that you want to carry with you into the future. You can do this by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review with your top 3 takeaways from this episode. If you've already left a review, first, thank you so much. Second, it's time to start a Brain Dump journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a slip of paper will do where you can record a couple quick thoughts from each episode. Science shows this is one of the best ways to ensure long-term retention of new information. And finally, if you've got a brother, a sister, a coworker, or a best friend that you think would benefit from this episode, do them and us a favor and share with them this episode. Your support, as always, means the world to us.